a very good evening. I, Unnati Bhartia, take the privilege to welcome you all to the first webinar of Navkiran. Now, a lot of you already know what Navkiran is, but just to give an overview for those who don't, Navkiran is an initiative by top B School alums where you will be given the exposure to have live interactions with industry experts. You will be getting sessions on how to crack an interview, GDs, PIs, case studies every weekend. So this is what the initiative is like. And to give a brief introduction about myself, I'm Unnati. I'm an alumnus of NMIMS Mumbai 2019 batch. I currently work with Tata Consumer Products as a key account manager. And now for the today's sessions, we have three eminent speakers with us. And I'd like to begin by giving a brief introduction about them. So on the panel, we have Andre Thomas, who has completed his majors in marketing from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research. Prior to this, he was in the tourism and travel industry for about a year. Post his MBA, he has been working in a brand management role at General Mills, having worked with brands like Häagen-Dazs, Nature Valley, and Pillsbury. So I think we all should go and have a Pillsbury cookie after the session. Anando. The next speaker is Anando. Anando is a mechanical engineer from VIT Vellore, after which he worked with a data analytics firm for 9 months. Then he went on to pursue MBA from NMIMS Mumbai, where he specialized in finance, and he is currently working as a manager in the credit risk department at HDFC Bank, Mumbai. Thirdly, we have with us on the panel Shomadeep, who has done his mechanical engineering from Jadavpur University and then went on to work with Bajaj Auto Limited in materials planning. Post that, he did his MBA from FMS in operations and marketing. Having interned with Airtel in sales and marketing function, he is currently working with Deloitte as a strategy and operations consultant. Now, before we proceed, I'd like to share something of great importance and benefit to you all. I want to also tell you that Navkiran brings with itself a unique program, which is a personalized one-to-one mentorship program by industry experts who we call gurus. They will be guiding you individually on your profile building, how to crack GDs, PIs, how to get role clarity, get communication skills, and they will be assisting you in cracking the case studies and connecting you with the industry professionals to help you crack and be a case study competition leader in your respective colleges. So guys, gear up because I call upon the first speaker of the day, Andre, to take over. Over to you, Andre.
Hey, Unnati, thanks for the introduction. Welcome everyone. So happy to see so many people over here. Congratulations to everyone for cracking it and making it to top institutions of their choice. And I'm sure you all are super excited and eager to begin on this new journey. And I guarantee you it's going to be an extremely rewarding and fulfilling experience for all of you. I think we'll just start off. We've presented a sort of a structure and I'll just take you through the broad agenda. We'll sort of compiled most of the commonly asked questions together and we're trying to answer that in the beginning, post which we'll obviously have a Q&A round and you can type your questions that you have in comments. If we do not have enough time, we can always take up the remaining questions later. It could be on a 1v1 basis. So starting off, how do you really make the most out of your 2-year MBA? How do you get the most out of it? Now there are obviously there's going to be a lot of perspectives on this. I just want to share my piece and I think you can largely cover it within 4 big buckets. One is finding your niche, and I think this is the most important bit. Do not succumb to the fear of missing out. I think there are going to be a lot of things happening all the time. There's going to be competitions, there's going to be case studies. Choose what interests you and passionately follow that. You should aim at excelling in the few things that you do. I mean, there are going to be say 200, 400, 500 people in your batch, and obviously these are all top graduates. I've been at the top of their game. I've been good at acads. Everyone's supremely good at everything that they do. But you should choose your niche. And what is that? For example, I chose to actively participate in maybe a lot of corporate case study competitions and try to leverage that as a differentiator. Make it super clear as to what do you want to do stepping into an MBA. Now I know everyone's here and everyone obviously wants to get into a top company, get the top offer, but there are a lot of ways to actually get there, a lot of ways and you can stand out and you should try to stand out because you have a batch of 200 or 400 people who are as good as you at almost everything that you do. So find your niche and like really actively follow it. The second thing that you're gonna have the feel what you're gonna be feeling is you're gonna be feeling like a small fish in a big pond. I'm pretty sure all of you have been, like I mentioned, top of acads, top of extracurriculars, but over here, suddenly you're in the midst of 250 people who are all equally good as you. Now you're not the you guys are not the big fish in your small ponds anymore. You're all small fishes in big ponds, and each fish is really trying to stand out and differentiate himself or herself. So consider yourself the privileged few. You're already blessed to be here. Don't feel disheartened. You're already amongst the best in the country. You're almost 50% already destined towards success in whatever you want to choose and careers that you want to pursue in the future. But right now that you're 50% of the way down, there's 50% still to go. You can learn a lot from your peers, and I mean a lot. You'll have people who are excellent at maybe quantitative ability. There'll be people who have majored in finance and are super good at it. Choose and learn from these people. I mean, your biggest source of information besides what's going to be taught to you within the classroom is going to be your peers, and that you're going to have people all the way from freshers to people with multiple years of experience, and there's a plethora of information that you can actually garner from them. So do not be disheartened. I mean, maybe you were the best at in quantitative ability in CAT, maybe you were a 99.9 percentiler, maybe you're a 100 percentiler, but over here you're not going to feel as smart as you did maybe in your maybe at school, because you were excellent there and you still are, but now there are a lot more people who are as good as you. Instead, try to learn from your peers, and there's a lot that they can teach you. I think my third point is going to be don't miss the forest for the trees. There's, like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot happening. There's competitions, classes, case studies. There's going to be work on Saturdays, Sundays. There's going to be work on the weekends. But just remember, and you can ask any graduate or through an MBA, these are probably going to be the best 2 years of your life. You're going to have a fabulous time. You're going to be learning. You're going to be growing. You're going to make some really great friendships throughout here. There's a lot more than acads. You can try to upscale and find happiness in the little things. It could be just catching up with your friends or going out for a movie. Don't feel so pressured into trying to be at the top. All of you are already there. I mean, there's no point in scrapping and trying to be number one. Yes, give your best, but also give your best. Try to get the most out of acads. But there's a whole lot more to do within these 2 years. And at the end of these 2 years, like if we have another webinar after 2 years, you guys are going to be telling me, oh, I had a fantastic experience. These are the 2 best years of my life. And that's what everyone says. So try to make the most of your 2 years here. Finally, and I think most importantly, my fourth point would be to find your tribe. Find the chosen people who are going to help you through thick and thin. And there will be multiple of these. You just have to go out and find them. I have a set of maybe 5, 6, 7 friends who I'm so close to. They've helped me in projects, assignments. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are the reason why I actually graduated. I'm not academically supremely gifted, but they helped me through submissions, projects, and through thick and thin. They were a shoulder to cry on maybe when I didn't get placed in the first few companies that I wanted to. You need to find that support ecosystem, find the people who are going to help you out, find the people who are going to help you succeed, and make sure that you try to capture them as much as you can from these 2 years that we have over here. I think there's a question. We'll pick up the questions later. Thanks, Unnati. I think that's about it from my end.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. I think a lot of people would be able to understand that, what are the first steps that they're supposed to take in their MBA. I'm sure they're very overwhelmed right now. So thank you for that. Now, my next question is to Anando about the confusion and the anxiety over how to choose a club or committee which I want to be a part of, and how to get through that club and committee in the process of selection. How do I get through those clubs and committees? Over to you, Anando.
Thank you, Unnati. Hi, everyone. So before I actually jump into that question, I just want to say that it's really satisfying to see so many of you've joined this webinar today. This just goes on to show that despite the times that we are currently living in, one thing that never dies out is the power of academia and the enthusiasm of you students. So it's actually fantastic, very heartening to see all of you join today. When it comes to clubs and committees, yeah, it's a very valid question and it's pertinent across B schools. This confusion is always there. So I'll try to clear it out as per my understanding for all of you. So I personally categorize the clubs and committees into two segments. One is your functional clubs and committees, which include your finance cell, your marketing cell, your IT and operations cell. So these things are there under the functional cells, and in your core cells, you have the committees like your alumni cell, your student council, your placecom. So these constitute the core cells. So I'll first talk about the functional cells a little. So if you're looking to gain a practical experience of what you learn in the classrooms and what you learn in your textbook, you can actually gain it here, because you'll be subjecting yourself to some research work, some content creation, and you can actually apply what you learn in the textbooks and in your classrooms over here. And also alongside that, so these clubs also organize events throughout the couple of 2 years. So that can help you build connections inside your college with your club mates, with your seniors, and in some cases your alums also, who were a part of your committee before. So it also helps in your overall personal development to a certain extent. So if you're looking for something like this, I think the functional cells are the place for you to be in. Now if you come to the core cells, I mean, I'll start off very honestly. You won't actually get any academic assistance when you consider these cells. But what these cells typically have to offer is that they have a profound positive impact on your personality, because as a part of these cells, you'll be interacting with tons of people. And to be very honest, that doesn't you don't have to restrict yourself to people within the college. In fact, most of the times it's people outside the college, people from the industry that you're interacting with. So I think while you're doing that, you get to know a lot of people, you come across a lot of people, and that actually helps in your personality development. It helps in you developing your interpersonal skills a lot, which in turn helps you in your professional life a lot. Trust me, it does. It has helped me a lot in my professional life. So that is what these cells have to offer. Now, before I actually wrap this up, I would like to address one particular issue. I've been facing a lot of questions on whether it's good to join this particular cell, whether this cell is good or this cell is bad, whether that cell is good or bad. So there is no good and bad actually here. It's about what you want. Like I described, what you are expecting from, what you can expect from these two cells. Wherever you see yourself fit, I mean, that particular cell is good for you. Now, I'm not going to talk about any other cell in particular, but when you're talking about TASECOM, yes, you have to probably compromise on certain webinars or certain seminars in whatever domain it may be, finance, marketing, that your batchmates are attending. Probably you might not be able to take part in certain sports events, certain cultural events. You might have to stay back in college a little longer, because you're always going to have TASECOM work. But if that is how you want to spend the next 2 years of your life, if that is what you see in yourself, if that is what gives you the thrill, please go ahead, and TASECOMs will be delighted to have you on board. So I think that's about it from my end.
Thank you, Anando. I hope we've been able to maybe provide a bit of the guidance in the matter, which is currently very overwhelming for everyone as to which club and committee to join. So, guys, go follow your interests. Also, see what will help you develop, and also see where you think you will get an edge to kind of sell yourself better. Because MBA is all about developing yourself and knowing how to sell yourself better. Now, I have a question about CV, something which distinguishes a person at the first go, and how important building your CV correctly and suitably as per your profile is. This is a very important concern and is often not taken seriously enough. So I'd like to call upon Shomadeep to take this question up.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Shomadeep and I'm going to take you through the journey of learning about what a CV basically is and how you can make a powerful CV which can differentiate you from the rest of your batch. For the starters who do not have work experience, the word CV exudes a stage of fright. What is this, yeah, CV? How can I make a one-page CV with all the things which I've done in my life? And how can I frame powerful, cogent CV points which can impress the recruiters? So, to start off, there are a few things which I want to take you through before I discover CV. So, a CV is basically divided into a few broad sections. The first sections would be your academic marks results, which would typically have your 10th, 12th, graduation marks. So typically you cannot do much about it, but yes, if you can highlight your points well in the form that, let's say, in your graduation you had a fairly good CGPA, you can highlight or make it in bold so that it can stand out from the other academic points in case your 10th or 12th was not on the higher side. Next, the most important point would be your work experience. So your work experience would demonstrate, number one, the kind of knowledge and skills which you have gained over the past 1 2 years, whatever duration you have worked, and how these practical learnings can be honed further during your MBA and to the company which you join post your MBA. So be very careful to basically understand what you did during your work. So you may say that I worked in any IT consulting firm and it was typically an operational work. So how do I present the best form of myself? So there's a way out there. You can split your work experience into two or three broad areas. One is whatever your regular deliverables or expectations were. So there will be two or three main areas. For example, if you were in operations, let's say managing a particular stream of work, some spend, how to optimize the cost, or how to bring on new vendors, on those lines. Next, you have to highlight some achievement of yours in a very succinct manner, so which puts forward that you in a very realistic manner were given a task and you were able to exceed expectations of your manager. So there are some key action verbs which can demonstrate these traits of you in a very cogent manner. We will help you out in the due course of time how to frame very convincing CV points as we go forward. And next, what were your let's say deliverables to the stakeholders or clients if you're in a client facing industry? So this gives the recruiter insight into how well confident you are when you face let's say a dealer, uh, external, let's say, stakeholder, and how much business or let's say comfort you are able to generate in him. So put your CV points in the work experience section under these three brackets, and that should put you a leap apart from the rest of the competition. Going forward, the other points are you have to highlight your extracurricular activities or co-curricular activities along with your PORs. So you will hear these jargons very often. So PORs are positions of responsibility. So as you know that when you will be joining a B school, there would be many clubs, committees, which you can join and hone your skills. So when you put those points on the CV, you would be questioned what your learning has been and how you can deliver these learnings in the field of company's work. So these pointers can help you keep yourself ahead of the competition. So to summarize things, CV building is not rocket science. You can do a fairly good job if you are well structured, if you can follow all the points which I have very clearly outlined during the course of discussion. And in case of framing CV points, try to be brief, use action words, and try to quantify whatever achievements you have done. For example, if you were able to acquire 1,000 customers over a period of 3 weeks for any project, please mention those numbers. Or if example you are able to increase the sales by 25% over a quarter, please mention those numbers. That puts you in the right stead.
Thank you, Shomadeep. So basically, making your CV crisp and putting PORs or positions of responsibilities, and you also have to give time to making your CV as per the profiles you're targeting. Is what I think Shomadeep also explained to us in detail. Thank you, Shomadeep. And now that we are clear on the role of a CV and the importance of building it, let's move on to the next subtopic, which is how to strike a balance between internal and external assignments, projects, and exams, because there are so many in number and they'll pounce on you before you even know it. So let's ask Shomadeep, how do you do that? How do you balance between academics and developing yourself and doing the various activities that MBA provides you exposure to? How do you balance everything, Shomadeep? What are your views?
So I'll move on to the way in which we can balance our B school activities, which would be very regular on campus till your summer placements are complete, and your academics, which are very important from the long term perspective. So, see, you have to understand that there will be very little time. So, please prioritize your activities on campus depending on your interest. I cannot lay enough importance on how important this word prioritization is. So, please try to understand that whatever CV point you write would require strong justification during your interview. So, just do not go into any random activity for the sake of a CV point. Instead, focus on any activity which interests you. For example, if you're an extrovert out and out guy who likes, like, say, knowing stuff on ground, or you would like some kind of penchant for selling some stuff, you can try to join the marketing club of your campus. You have to prioritize your area of, let's say, interest, and you have to focus all your energies towards that. So for example, many people may say you can go into consulting, you may go into marketing, you try your hands at some other activities as well. So in my humble opinion, it may not make sense to jump into the bandwagon of all the clubs just for the sake of, let's say, diversifying and adding more CV points. Rather than adding the quantity of CV points is very important, you add quality or meat into it. For example, if you're an out and out extrovert guy or a girl, and you find that you can add value to yourself by being a part of the marketing, let's say, committee, you can join that and be very curious to learn more about, let's say, what the theoretical concepts you learn in the classroom is, and relate it to whatever practical activities you do in that club. There will be many events which you would be exposed to during the course of 2 years. So try to learn the linkage and marry your academic learning with your practical activities which happen on campus. That is one point. Next is, whenever you're attending classes, there is a general observation that some people slack off academically, thinking that okay, for summers it may not be that important. But there's a caveat to it. In the long term, if you do not focus on your academics, it may not be good for your fundamental knowledge. So please be very attentive when you're attending classes. So be very careful that you attend all the lectures very attentively and take notes. This is one lesson you have to learn in your B school life, that there may be a lot of, let's say, cases, narratives which may be taught in class, but you have to understand the meat of it and the gist of it and write it down in your notebook. You can revise those notes, whatever you made for different subjects, different classes you had at the end of the day. So that helps you keep all the lessons afresh in your memory. So let's say you have a quiz on that particular topic after 7 days, it will help you understand, okay, fine, I had learned this particular topic, the professor discussed this point. So maybe for a quiz or any particular internal assessment, that will be extremely beneficial, and that would show up your internal assessment marks as well. So be very careful with the notes. Learning from textbooks, there may be some challenge in getting the time reading full textbooks. So you can, like, say, refer to important topics, subtopics from the textbooks, and in case of doubts, please reach out to the seniors or, let's say, professors with some specific doubts. They will help you, like, say, clarify your concepts or any misconcepts which you have learned, and it will make you academically more strong. So I hope I was able to address some of the pertinent points. And regarding some queries which are coming in regarding consulting and how to verify CV points, so there will be a committee in every B school which verifies your CV points. So for that, I believe they will ask you for proofs in the form of some emails which have to be sent to a designated email ID from the person who's acknowledging your particular point. For example, if you had worked with your boss on some project and he knows that you had achieved some sales target numbers, so that boss would be sending an email to your particular college committee that yes, this particular candidate worked under me in this project and he has indeed achieved this CV points. So that would be verified. So this is how the typical process goes.
All right, all right. So basically, what you're trying to say is that ACADS should not be completely ignored, because at the end of the day, if someone is sitting for final placements, they do play a major role. But
Absolutely.
participating in as many activities as you can, because MBA is all about exposing yourself to various things. So is that what you're saying? That focus on everything, but don't miss out on anything. Be a jack of all trades.
So, Anati, just adding to that, I mean, thanks, Shamdeep. I think you summarized it really well. But I think just in addition to what you heard from Shamdeep, just define what is your particular roadmap that is to your goal. For example, if your goal, and make sure you have your goal, and your goal could be multiple things, right? It could be as simple as, hey, I want to get into, say, I saw a question about like consulting. Maybe I want to get into a McKinsey. So figure out what, if my final aim is to get into, if my objective is to get into consulting at the end of 2 years, what is it that enables me to get there? A catch is definitely going to be for consulting. Yes, it's going to be super important, because for consulting, acads are gonna a lot of these companies will shortlist your dean's top 20 or a top 30 in the college. So hence, for that particular line of work, it might be acads might be super important. What if you want to get into, maybe if your objective is to finally get into, maybe, or if you want to get into the marketing domain, suppose you want to work in FMCG, you want to work for a Unilever or a P&G, what can maybe enable me to get there? And over there, it might be just having a lot of, maybe taking part in a lot of corporate case study competitions, learning a lot from your peers, maybe knowing, so there are like Unilever, P&G, each of them have their individual case study competitions, right? So choose what it is that, choose what you want to do in these 2 years according to what your final objective is. And for many of you, it may not be clear as to what you want to do finally, and that's something that you can always obviously fine tune over the 2 years. But if you have an objective and clear, it helps you as to how you want to get there. So align your roadmap according to your final goal.
Thank you, Andre. I think very well put. So now we've come to the most paramount part of our conversation, and I'm sure you're all eagerly waiting to understand the question of summer placements. I'm sure everyone is very eager to get an answer for this one. So, Andre and Anindo, how does a company shortlist students? Is it a random process, or is there any shortlisting criteria that the companies follow? Say finance, marketing, ops companies. What do you think are the criteria that these companies follow? Or is it random? What are your views?
Thank you, Unnati. I think it's a very important question, which I think everyone should know of. I'll be very blunt on this one. To start with, it is very ambiguous. When it comes to shortlisting, it's very ambiguous. No one knows what's the actual or the specific shortlisting criteria, no matter which company it is. And I'll tell you why that happens, because when companies come to recruit your college every year, they don't have a set criteria each year. So one year they might be looking for freshers for roles pertinent to freshers. The other year they want people with high work ex. Next year they might come with requirements of people with moderate work ex. So you never know what is a set criteria for shortlisting for a particular company, for a particular company, say X. So I can never tell you that this particular company X shortlists people on the basis of these criteria. So I'm not going to give you that. But at the same time, I'm not going to leave you at that as well. So there are certain companies and certain roles which have been following a particular trend for all these years, and I will tell you from my experience what it is. But at the same time, I also want to tell you that it is not sacrosanct, and if you take that as granted, if you take that as a holy grail and move on, that I was told that this particular company is shortlisting basis of these characteristics, but I'm still not shortlisted, then I can't help it, because as I said, it keeps changing from year to year. But the general trend, I'll talk about it a little. I'll talk about certain roles in specific. So for example, when you talk about finance, so there are roles in IB and equity research. So these roles typically shortlist freshers. So that is what I've seen. That is a trend. So they have a knack for shortlisting freshers because they have like out of the charts working hours, and they typically believe that freshers are well suited to do that. Now, same applies to companies, FMCG companies as well. So FMCGs also have the knack for shortlisting freshers. So that is what they do again. Now, for example, companies with banks, typically banks with which offer roles of RMs in your for large corporate clients. Then even in credit risk, they tend to shortlist people on the basis of work ex. That is a particular trend that I've noticed. And again, when you come to IT companies and tech consulting companies, again, those companies also tend to shortlist people with work ex. So like I said, this is the general trend. I will not take names of any particular companies, but that's the general trend that the companies follow, at least in our college. So I can tell you that. So, but again, as I said, this is not the holy grail, and this might change from year to year. That's about it from my end.
I think Andre can add more to it. Andre, what do you think?
Yeah, so great points by Anindya. Just to add to that, what we really require and how do companies shortlist, right? And I think there were a couple of questions. I was actually just going through the questions in chat, and I think someone's mentioned is age a criteria? Is your work experience a criteria? You'll sort of have to go into a little more depth about where and what you want to sort of get into. For example, and this is just personal experience. So I was part of a Placecom as well. For example, if you want to get into, there was a question about is work experience a criteria? Like, am I too old to get into a particular sector? There might be industry and company specific preferences, and again, these are not rock solid. So there might be certain sectors and certain companies that do prefer. Say, there might be companies that prefer freshers. There might be, and this could be a lot, maybe, and this is again perspective. This is just my personal opinion. But a lot of finance companies do recruit a lot of freshers. Do recruit freshers. They do have a preference for maybe people who have done a CA. But does that mean that if you are not a CA and that you're not a fresher, does that inhibit you from getting through? No, not really. While that is obviously maybe being a CA is a foot in through the door, how do you really close the deal and convert that coveted pre-placement offer or convert that interview into actually being there with the organization? That's going to depend on the sort of effort you've put in the 2 years. It's never too late. Someone's asked a question about, is it too late to do maybe a course? It depends on how you're going to manage time, right? do not see yourself as disadvantaged just because you may not have certain qualifications that your peers are going to have. There are going to be people with more experience than you, and this is work experience. A lot of operations graduates have come into the system with maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years of experience. If you are a fresher, don't feel threatened by it. Think of how can you learn from the people during these 2 years, and there are going to be multiple avenues. How can you learn from them? How can you gain those skills required to actually be as good as them in an interview? Or for example, if you haven't done a CA and there might be like 10, 15, 20 CAs in every batch, learn from CAs. You have everything that you need right around you. All the information that you need, all the help that you need is surrounded, it's all around you. So don't feel disadvantaged. 2 years is a lot of time, plenty of time to learn, upskill, and still continue to stay relevant. So do not, and this is my final line, is just do not burden yourself with thinking that you do not have the qualifications to get through to where you want to. Nothing is sacrosanct. If you do not have, suppose a company has a preference for 2 years of work ex, maybe you are a fresher. Maybe you don't get through to that place, but it doesn't matter because you might get in through some place that is even better. Or if you're so good and if you're able to really prove yourself and be that brilliant, they're not going to consider that 2 years of experience. If you're that good, they're going to take you in anyway. And maybe we can connect later, but everyone, Shomadeep, Anindya, Unnati, there are going to be examples from every batch. You do not need, it's not exactly a checklist that you need to check every box. Do not burden yourself with trying to check every box. That's probably not the way you want to go through these 2 years.
Thank you, Andre. I think that sums it up really well. That, shortlisting criteria can be extremely random. It can be something set by the companies which we don't know exactly what we're looking for. So don't think that a certain company will shortlist you or will not shortlist you. Just prepare is what we can say. Now, there's another question which people feel very overwhelmed with. Is that which domain to apply in? I'm a BCom graduate. Should I apply for finance? But my interest lies in marketing. And many people have this kind of confusion when they come from a certain background and they're freshers. You don't really know which domain to apply in finance, marketing, ops, IT, etc. So we will have Shomadeep answer your question to ease out this confusion. Shomadeep, over to you.
A very good question indeed. In fact, this is one question which bogs the mind of everyone, be it a fresher or an experienced guy joining an MBA program. So the first way to look at it is when you are looking at, let's say, a domain, be it finance, marketing, or let's say operations, you have to look at two things. One is your prior academic, academic record background, along with your work experience. And the other dimension is very important when you're choosing a particular professional, let's say, domain, is how well your personality fitment is with the requirements of work over in the, let's say, given domain. I'll take you through some of the very popular domains which are taken typically by MBAs. First, if you are looking at finance as a domain, you may feel more comfortable if you are from a BSc economics or BCom background. However, there are many engineers who do exceptionally well in the finance, let's say, domain subjects and in the professional field going forward. So when you're looking at finance as a domain, so the typical characteristics, however, it is not sacrosanct. Typical characteristics would be someone who is very diligent with numbers, someone who is very comfortable working with Excel, and who's very interested to work with the financial jargon statements, in understanding the health of a company and how they can optimize different financial, let's say, areas for growing a company. So these are typically traits, however not sacrosanct, for taking up finance as a career or a domain in MBA. Moving forward, if you are someone who's trying to explore whether to take up marketing and sales or not, you have to understand the fitment of your personality with your marketing and sales professional requirements. Typically, people who are out and out extroverts or even ambiverts, who are very curious about products, brand campaigns around in the market, and someone who wants to thrive in a growing environment, be growing a product sales or growing a company, they would typically like the field of sales and marketing very much. And there is no hard and fast rule that you need to be a fresher to join a sales and marketing. Though some companies have a penchant towards hiring freshers, there are experienced professionals who get shortlisted and join sales and marketing and do very well in their career. Moving forward, if you are someone who has some prior background in manufacturing companies, be it automotive or some other kind of manufacturing products, and are interested in the nitty gritty of the working of, let's say, processes, products, and how you can improve the operational performance of a company, then operations may be a suitable profession for you. When you look at operations, there may be, let's say, a technique or technology based operations companies which will enable you to help a company grow in the technological area. And there are operations for the manufacturing side which will require you to understand the manufacturing process in and out, and give them solutions on how you can improve their performance using new techniques and solutions. So people with experience in this area, especially people who have worked in a company like Tata Motors or Bajaj for a year or so, a couple of years, they may find this particular area more suitable. However, freshers who have a knack for these subjects, who find these areas very interesting, they can upskill themselves with some live projects during their MBA, and they can also try their shot in operations and build a career in it. Last, I would like to mention the opportunities and how to choose your area in the IT consulting space. So typically, there will be companies like Capgemini, TCS, and likes, which would be opening profile of IT consultant role in your campus. So people who have prior experience in the IT sector may be a good fit. Also, people who are freshers and who are very keen and curious to understand how technology is helping companies grow and would want to, like say, be a part of this, they can also look at IT consulting as a career domain. It's a very thriving domain, and going forward, many companies are going to invest a lot in the IT function in their growth story. So you can look at IT as an option also. It's like uh, it can be a good career option for both freshers and experienced professionals. So to sum it up, I would say, do not get overwhelmed by a lot of domains. Be very clear about your personality type, whatever subjects based on your initial, let's say, understanding of the basic fundamental subjects, and by interacting with your seniors, you can understand. Try to focus on those areas during your preparation, so that will keep your knowledge base really, let's say, strong in some areas, so that you have good talking points when you speak. So that is how I look at, let's say, choosing a domain. And you can refer out to your seniors and industry veterans. They would be more than happy to help you out in choosing a domain, or in, let's say, clarifying some of the doubts you may be having with that specific areas.
Thank you, Shwamadeep. I think you've summed it up quite well. So definitely, you should go with something that you are interested in, and at the same time that suits your personality and suits your interests. And you can always look out for industry people for role clarity as to what do you want to do. Does it align with actually the role that you're looking at, or is it something that you've just merely heard? So of course, a lot of guidance can help, and a lot of guidance can take you to the right path of what you want to explore. And lastly, and very importantly now, Andrai, I want to know from you that how to prepare for the process of summer internships. Like if a company shortlists you and you want to get into that company, then how do you prepare? How do you crack the GD? How do you crack the PI? How are you confident enough to do it? And what are the skills required for that?
So I think there were again, I was just going through the chat. I'm sorry, we're not probably able to answer questions. We'll take up the remaining later. So where does preparation really begin, right? There are questions as to maybe I have experience in a particular sector. Say I was in banking and I want to move to brand management. How do I really do that? So beginning point is where you are today. I think the point to start is forget that baggage of your past. I mean, maybe you have 5 years of experience in manufacturing and you want to maybe get into a role that is, you want to get into finance, maybe. How do you explain that? Let's try to sort of shift away. There's nothing you can do about that past. You can just try to, you have 2 years ahead of you. How do you make the most out of it, right? I'll just take an example. I think one of the participants said, how do I move from, say, banking to a brand management role, right? Your past, it's there, it's on your CV. You can choose not to mention it, but I think your place com's going to do a pretty valid check. So that will eventually come out. But the point is, you have 2 years to learn and really grow from like your peers around you. If you're super interested in brand management, why don't you just take part in the competitions that, say, a Unilever or a P&G or a J&J have? Figure out what can you, like, what all have you learned? Have you gone beyond Kotler on branding and marketing? Have you gone ahead, taken some live projects, learned, been a part of a case study, or done a competition? How much do you really know? So yeah, you do know a lot of banking and you work there for 2 years, but when you step into that interview, see, Once you get that shortlist, now getting that shortlist is the difficult portion. Like that is where you do not have control, and it may all seem purely luck. But once you have your foot in through the door, once you step in and get into that interview, then it's all you. And then it's not your past experience that matters. It's not the amazing work that you've done academically. It's not your 100 percentile in CAT. All that's going to matter is how well are you able to articulate what you've learned in 2 years, right? How confident are you? How much do you really know, and how much of it are you actually able to translate and inspire confidence in the interviewer that, hey, maybe he worked in banking for 2 years, but hell, he knows a lot more than all the other 200 people I've interviewed about branding and marketing. He knows all the PNG, the biggest campaigns that I've done. Learn a lot. If you have a goal to get into a particular organization, and here it could be, I'm just taking an example of FMCG over here because I've been working in that sector for a while. If you want to get into a PNG, and you can translate this into any other company, it could be you getting into an HDFC or you getting into a consulting or IB. Learn more about the company that you want to get into. You do not want to be the person who steps into a Unilever interview, and when you're asked when you're asked the question about your favorite Unilever brand campaign, that you're not able to speak about it. So you are going to want to have to research more about the company that you want to get in. Prepare a short list of say 15 or 10 or 15 or 5 or 10 companies and these could be suppose you're interested in banking, it could be a DBS, it could be SBI. Figure out what are these banks that you want to get into. I'm just taking an example over here again. Go in deep, try to understand and I'll again go back to my FMCG example over here. For example, if it's P&G or a Unilever, figure out about what are their brands, who is the target consumer, what are the campaigns that they've done. Learn everything, learn more about their, what did you particularly like? Maybe you went into a store and found an amazing point of sale display of Unilever. You can mention that to an interviewer, they'll be supremely happy because it communicates that you're super interested in joining their organization. There is no blanket slate there is no format and there's no template that I can follow. Say, hey, if I follow this template in an interview, that's going to get me into 20 companies. Your process will have to be different for each and every organization. Your process for approaching a Unilever interview cannot be the same maybe as a P&G, because obviously you need to align your values with that of the company. That's another thing you could do. What are P&G's values? What are Unilever's values? What are their brands? Dig deeper into the brands and into the companies and try to explain to the interviewer, hey, I am super interested in joining your organization and I know so much more than my peers. And hey, I've been following you super actively on your social media channels. It could be any of those, it could be all of those. So treat every interview as a very separate process. I mean, there is no one size fits all over here.
So now, a few questions that we received were regarding the online internships. So are online and virtual internships as valuable as offline? And if so, we should recommend how you can get them. And if you're not getting any corporate project, then what is the next step? So we've bucketed these questions and I'll ask Shomadeep to take up these two questions. Over to you, Shomadeep.
So the first question, online virtual internships as well as offline. See, there are two things to it. One is, what kind of internship are you talking about? Are you talking about internship which demands you to be in the sales field where you have to be on the ground, talk to the dealers, distributors? So if it's a live project or internship which requires that, it may be a bit challenging to do a virtual internship unless you are doing some kind of a data analytics driven internship, in which case you can work equally well from home. So typically, if you're looking at a virtual internship right now, it would be more on the side of market research, data analytics oriented, or let's say some kind of platform where the customers can be reached out over some virtual means. If you're looking at an internship which doesn't require you to be on the field, maybe something in the area of finance, technology, those can be done virtually. I believe you can look up some of the very popular websites. For example, Internshala has a collection of very good internships which they keep updating on a day-to-day basis, and you can apply for the relevant internships as per your interest. So go as by your interest, because every internship will have an application process and an interview where they will be screening you based on your personality and your interests. So only apply for those internships where you really want to contribute and have active interest. So overall, some internships may be affected in the virtual scenario, but many of the internships will be as good in the virtual format. So choose your internship format very clearly. Next question is, if you are not getting any corporate project, what's the next step? So one way to boost up your CV is you can look up different websites. For example, you will come across this very interesting site called Dare to Compete, and let's say Internshala I've already spoken about, where they keep floating a lot of live cases, case competitions, case studies, which you can actively participate. And if you are managed to, let's say, qualify for subsequent rounds and win, they are very good talking points during your, let's say, MBA interviews, be it your summers or finals. So you have to take part in the let's say good popular case competitions, and actively, let's say, do some market research to understand what kind of product problem they're talking about, and based on your quality of your assignment, you will be rewarded by the company or the competition. So these are some of the alternatives which you're talking about to corporate projects. The other way to upskill yourself is you can enroll in some of the very popular, let's say, uh, courses on platforms like Coursera, edX, Udemy, and when you are, let's say, going for these courses, always go for the proctored courses. The reason being, when you are evaluated in that kind of scenario and you have some marks or some certification which is validated by the company, that adds more credibility to your certification. That would be very helpful when you are writing a CV point and let's elaborating whatever learnings you had over the course of time. So go for a proctored, let's say, courses when you enroll. These are
Okay.
some of the ways, and you can also reach out to people, seniors or let's say veterans who will come for guest lectures. If they have any opportunity to give you, let's say, any, let's say, corporate, let's say, let's say, part-time assistantship without any stipend, you help them out in their work, and they can write a good mail to you, like say, acknowledging your work. That could also be a good alternative for any corporate project in case there is a lack of corporate projects in the pipeline.
Okay, thank you, Shamadeep. I think very well taken up. So he's almost mentioned all the pointers of how to get up a corporate project or an internship. Also, do reach out to industry experts. You maybe your alums, maybe alums of other B schools. They will be more than willing to help. So keep reaching out to people. We can teach you how maybe in another session. Now, the next bucket of questions relates to how do you read an interviewer's mind and how do you crack the interview? How do you get placed in a good company for summers? How do you get a PPO after getting placed in a good company? And how do you get role clarity? So we have amongst us Andre, who interned with a very good company, General Mills, and he also got a PPO. So let's hear from him. What is his take on these questions? Over to you, Andre.
Okay, super. So how do you read an interviewer's mind and crack the interview? Uh, okay, so you can't really, I mean, probably the interviewer is a lot more experienced than you, and I don't know, not sure if you can read his mind, but how you can crack the interview is by, say, having, like I did mention before, right? Show supreme alignment into your values with that of the organization. For example, just to give you an example, there are companies like P&G, and you have the P&G 50 questions, which is basically all our HR related questions about values and cultural fitment. If you're getting into P&G, make sure that you've gone through these 50 questions. If you want to join Amazon, you have Amazon's 14 principles, right? So that's how they drive their interview process, is through your fitment and alignment with these 14 principles. So make sure that you know what these 14 principles are. And again, this would vary from organization to organization. And this is information that you can find very easily online. I mean, it's just a Google search away. So figure out what are the organizational values and try to align all your answers according to that. Now, over here, I do not mean that, say, if there is an organizational value that maybe is not actually a value for you, do you want to force fit your work experience or your experience into this? Maybe you don't want to do that, but focus on what are the other things. Suppose you really want to get into Amazon, and say one of Amazon's principles is always about move fast and act boldly. If that is an organizational value, you want to sort of juxtapose. Maybe you are a person with work experience and you want to talk about how you were supremely quick and agile about taking an action that was that saved your company a lot of time. So that is something they'll be very happy to hear. So you need to know a lot more about the organization. Suppose you want to get into, say, just an example. Suppose you want to get into a bank, and if it's DBS, what are DBS's values and culture? Fit your experiences and your experience working, or if you're a fresher, try to incorporate your experience during your 2 years of an MBA into the company's values. How do you get placed in a good company for summers? Again, make sure that you do a comprehensive, and this is the second question, make sure you do a comprehensive analysis and know specifically why do you want to join a particular organization, and make sure that you know everything about, not everything about the organization, obviously not, but try to make sure that you know a lot, and that way you'll be able to have an intelligent conversation with the interviewers. How do you get to a PPO? Okay, so that's after you get into an organization. How do you get to a PPOs? Hey, you do more of the same. You make sure that you're working hard, you're working smart, you're networking with people. I won't spend a lot of time here because we can always talk about that later. How to get role clarity? That's something that Shaumadeep had spoken about. A lot of you here may not really know that what particular domain do you want to get into. What is that? Is it marketing? Is it finance? For some of you, it's clear. For some of you, that's something you learn along the way. It's something you'll figure out. So how do you get it? I think that's some introspection you'll have to do. Think about where you worked. Again, taking the example of someone who spoke about banking. Do you want to get into marketing? How do you learn more about marketing? Hey, there are so many courses that you have. There are online mediums. There are people in your batch that would have probably worked in marketing organizations. Speak to them. So yeah, that's a short answer for that.
Okay. So I think that is quite well summed up and well put up, Andre. Thank you. Now the next questions are about what is the importance and the need of doing courses in finance. What are the courses to do in finance, and are Python and R necessary to get into a role of credit analysis? So I think over to you, Anindo. I think you are the best to answer these questions.
So the importance and need will always be there. I mean, it goes without saying that if the more courses you do, the better it is for you. But again, at the same time, I would like to say I faced a couple of questions in the chat as well. It is not absolutely necessary for someone who is aspiring to build a career in finance to have a CFA or an FRM degree. Now, at the same time, it will be very beneficial for you if you have it, but it is not absolutely necessary for you to have it. I personally don't have any CFA or FRM certifications as of now. And it's to be very honest, it's not hampering or affecting my career in any way. So I will not say that yes, if you're an engineer, if you're coming from a non-finance background, it is absolutely necessary for you to actually go for a CFA or an FRM and then sit for your placements, complete your CFA L1, L2 at least before joining college. All these things I'm not going to tell you because it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, there are other courses as well. I've been getting a lot of questions on what other courses exactly. There are a lot of courses. You can try NCFM. There are a lot of courses, like Shaumadeep mentioned, there's a lot of courses on Coursera and edX on finance also. Any certification that you do, any certification you can put on your LinkedIn or on your CV, anything that adds value to you is fine. I mean, it's perfect. So earlier there was this organization called Flip that unfortunately shut down. Otherwise, I would have advised you to go for that. I've personally done a couple of certifications from there, but that's not a problem. There is NCFM and there's Coursera, there's edX. There's so many other things to actually look into. You can explore a lot of things, and there are good websites like Wall Street Mojo, etc., for you to develop and gain a holistic and a comprehensive idea about what finance, valuations, equity research exactly is. You can also look into Zerodha's Varsity for if you want to understand the capital markets. If that is something where you want to see yourself, you can actually go through Zerodha's Varsity platform. I think it gives a very simple and a lucid understanding of what the capital markets, how the capital markets function. Yeah. So next question, Unnati.
Next question is, what are the courses to do in finance? But I think you've taken that up.
I think I've covered that, yeah.
Yes. So Python and R, are these softwares necessary for credit analysis?
This is a very, very good question, whoever has asked it, and this is very pertinent to what I am currently doing right now. I would like to say that R and Python, and there are other tools as well like Agility, Angos, etc. These are very, very, very important, at least when you're looking at it from a credit risk perspective, because I'll tell you something very honestly, banks are now transforming themselves or implementing analytical methods to determine slippages and NPAs in their portfolio. And for these analytical methods, they are using certain tools like R and Python. R we even use in our vertical, that is Basel. But Python and all, I haven't personally used extensively, but we have a different department in our bank called the RAU, or the Risk Analytics Unit, where they extensively use these softwares, and not just R and Python, like I mentioned, Agility, Angos, Tableau, and many, many other softwares, which are very, very pertinent to understanding and determining slippages and NPAs in banks. Because, these domains typically deal with data. And when I talk about data, I mean huge chunks, massive chunks of data, because big banks like HDFC, SBI, ICICI, they have massive chunks of data. And if you actually efficiently able to utilize this data for your day-to-day functioning, I think you can gain lots. You can gain lots from this data. So that is what our bank also has been doing. And R and Python, I think, are the pillars of data analytics in today. I think you should definitely go for courses like this. If you understand this, it'll definitely help you in the future. Definitely, yeah.
Thank you, Anandu. I think very well put. So, Shamadeep, I'd like to pose this question to you. If your academic records for 10th and 12th and graduation is not so good, then what impact it has on shortlisting for summers? And what is the impact of your having WorkX on your shortlisting in summers? Can you quickly take it up, Shamadeep?
Very good question, Unnati. For the first question, 10th, 12th, and graduation marks. See, there will be some companies which would be laying some stress on 10th, 12th marks, but I don't think like there would be some kind of a cutoff mark that you have to get around 90% in 10th, 12th to get a shortlist. No, it has to be above a threshold level. There will be very few companies which would have that kind of a shortlisting criteria, but mostly if your 10th, 12th, and graduation are fairly decent. By fairly decent, I mean something above 80%, let's say 10th, 12th, and graduation, let's say some 7 point above, you would be eligible for shortlisting in most of the companies. So it's a basically a low pass filter which is used only by certain choosy companies for shortlisting. So don't worry about 10th, 12th graduation. What is important is how you are able to showcase whatever you've learned in the 3 months before your summers to the prospective recruiter. They would be judging you more on that, and whatever personality traits are your strength, please highlight them, let's say through some good extracurricular activity, those CV points. Or you may, let's say, make it a bit bottom heavy in the sense that any awards functions, let's say PORs which you have won, that would add very high value to your CV. So no, there's no worry about only 10th, 12th graduation. You can compensate with a lot of other like CV points which will be taken care of. Next point is the impact of work it's on shortlisting. See, for some of the roles like in consulting, operations, there may be a cap on work experience, limit, let's say, requirement of work experience for certain definite reasons. But other than that, if you're looking at career and let's say getting into finance, marketing, or even in some consulting firms, they prefer freshers a lot. So there will be opportunity for you irrespective of work ex or not. So do not worry about the work ex. But if you have work ex, well and good. If you do not have work ex, not a concern. You can highlight your other strengths, your extracurricular activities, some academic achievements to compensate for work ex. That is good enough to go forward.
Thank you, Shomadhi. So now I think one of the very important questions we've received, and I think we've received it over the questions in the chat even right now, how to network. So now guys, it is very important for everyone who's doing an MBA to network. And in your situation, since it's all virtual, it's all over the laptops and over the screens, so it is even more important how do you network. Do not fall back on networking, because as you're doing an MBA, you should know that being connected is what makes an MBA keep going forward, keep moving forward. Like today, if you see this initiative, a lot of alums from a lot of different B schools have come together. This is nothing but networking. This is nothing but developing and connecting with more and more people. Now, how you can do it? Try and interact with as many people as possible. Do not feel shy. Do not feel hesitant in approaching people. There is no harm. You can always approach your seniors, super seniors, seniors from any committees or clubs, or alums of other B schools. Go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook, look them out, send them DMs, personal message them, get hold of their numbers. Try to talk to your classmates. Your first and foremost network should be with your classmates, should be with your batchmates. So your classmates come first, then the clubs and committees, the people who are in your clubs and committees, they come the next, and your batchmates come the next. And then come your seniors, immediate seniors, super seniors, everyone. Try and reach out to as many people as you want to. If there's a company you're aiming at, say you're aiming at Bain, reach out to your seniors in Bain, ask how did they convert Bain, try and talk to them. It's not like, it does not come across as desperate, it does not come across as what you're doing is weird. No, people know that in MBA people will connect to as many people as possible, make a lot of connections on LinkedIn, try and reach out to people, ask them questions, introduce yourself, and people will remember you and people will help you out. MBA is a community where everybody has reached somewhere through someone's help. So no one's going to back out in helping you. You just have to reach out. Just reach out for help and you shall be given. So that is how you network. You go and interact. You don't feel hesitant. You don't feel shy. You approach people. You ask them your littlest questions. You ask them the biggest questions. So do that. Okay. So that is how you network. Start interacting. Start reaching out. Message, call, text, WhatsApp, DM. Reach out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. No issues. But do it. Now the next question is college name enough, or do skills count? Or does college provide you enough skills, or do we need to work on them? So now, as has already been mentioned to you in the session, that you can do many more courses on Udemy or Coursera or all of these sites, or you can probably do a CFA, or you can probably do a, some other kind of a course. So a lot of guidance has been given to you already. So yes, MBA, your college name will help you. All the colleges are good enough. The colleges that you guys have got into, they are one of the top in the countries. They come amongst the top 20 to 25 colleges. That's brilliant. But of course, you've got to also distinguish yourself in your own batch. So yes, keep on doing courses, but that does not mean that you completely drown in it. Just expose yourself to many activities, do some competitions, be a part of some club or committee, do a course or do an internship, go out and do a live project, go and do a corporate project. So keep doing multiple activities. Just skills in the sense of courses is not enough, and that is not the end and beginning of an MBA. You can do multiple things to just be involved. Keep doing something or the other on a day-to-day basis, and you will develop. And I think that will be more than enough for you to clear any obstacle during your MBA life. Now, the next question was international exchange. How does that look on your CV? See, international exchanges usually happen in your second year, and that is after you're placed. So how good they look on your CV is not really a matter of contention. You do an international exchange only from the purpose of your exposure. So that is a question you can answer when you are probably in your second year. If you're placed, then you must go for you can go for an international exchange, but it does not add a lot of value. But then again, any exposure is good exposure. Then how do you be proactive? So now see, you guys hopping onto this webinar, joining and attending this webinar, this is being proactive. You've got probably some tips that, yes, be a part of some club or committee as per your interest, or do some courses. You've got the areas where you can do the courses from, do some internships, look out for people on social media who can probably provide you with internships. So this is how being proactive is. You talk to people, you get there what kind of activities you can do in order to develop yourself, in order to keep yourself busy, in order to expose yourself. So these are some of the things you can do to be proactive, and hence you will learn in every activity that you do in MBA. And now I think we have another question, must-dos of MBA if one wants to pursue a career in marketing. I think I'll leave this question open for Angie to answer. Angie, over to you.
Yeah, so again, I've sort of covered this earlier. What are the must-dos if you want to follow something in marketing is make sure you know where do you want to apply, where do you want to do marketing, and learn a little more about marketing. Do you want to get into like the product, do you want to get into product innovation in marketing? Do you want to get into retail execution? What is it that you want to do? Do you want to work on, do you want to work across brands, or do you want to work in a brand management role? Do you want to get into shopper marketing? And I think we will be able to explain, by being a part of the Gurukul program, we'll be able to explain in more detail as well. But in order to get, like I said, your foot through the door, what you would want to display is a deep passion and an interest in marketing. Are you able to answer the question convincingly? Why do you want to do marketing? Or what is it that interests you? If you believe that you're able to convincingly answer that question and convince the interviewer, by through and how would you do that is obviously by you make sure that you're on top of marketing campaigns. You should have an interest for it. Like these are things that will come naturally if you have an interest. If you want to get into marketing, you'll obviously be following a lot of the trending topics online. You'll be following key brands. You'll be following the activations of some of your most loved brands. If I were to ask you, or if the interview asks you, what is your favorite brand and why do you love it? It could be a question as simple as that. And if you're able to really provide an amazing answer, then you're perfect for the job. I mean, and over here it doesn't matter if you have, again, 5 years of experience or no years of experience. All it matters is how well are you able to actually convince an interviewer about your skills and what you bring to the table. And if you're able to do that well, like none of your past really matters. You can get anything that you want to, but for that you'll have to display, you have to be passionate about what you want, right? So I cannot just get up 2 weeks before the placement process and hey, I want to get into marketing. Maybe that won't work, but maybe it will work 1 year down the line. And when you have 1 year to prepare and you know that you want to get into a marketing role, 1 year is plenty of time to learn and like really grow and get like in-depth understanding of what you want to do. So yeah.
Thank you all for joining us today. It was a great pleasure for all of us to interact with you all, and all the best to you all. And I'm sure these months will pass soon and you guys will not feel so overwhelmed then. MBA is a great journey you guys will enjoy. Thank you for joining today.